at this time, I have put a link. Someone did say that the chat wasn't necessarily working, so I did put a link as an answer in the Q&A to where you can find the video that gives all of the information about these options. And so tonight is really just a question and answer session based on that video. So hopefully you were able to watch that before this evening. If for some reason the link isn't working or anything like that, let me go ahead and share a different screen with you. So this is the website where you can find all of the information I'm going to be talking about tonight, or links to all of the information. This is actually the alternative credit options page. And you can see that we have College Credit Plus, which I won't be covering tonight because that has its own sessions. But you can see there's credit flexibility is linked here. The PE waiver, summer school is all here. And this at the bottom is the video that I'm referring to. Over on the right, you can see that here's the link to Lakota Central if you have questions about that as well. So with that said, I will go ahead and start answering and fielding some of the questions that have been posted. Again, please make sure that you're opening up the Q&A and typing in your questions there so that I can respond. So the first question is there a set time for the remote learning, or can students do this at will? And I'm assuming this is about Central. So Central is our technically, it is an online IRN, but it has a virtual option with in-person AM and PM sessions. So it gives some more flexibility for students who need a different kind of day for their high school experience. And as far as their virtual work, the student's schedule is really based upon what the student needs to graduate. It's based upon why they're attending Central in the first place. But they would attend one session AM or PM, and then they would do their virtual work on their own time. And that part of it is not scheduled. They get to do that based on their own individual schedules. Is the financial literacy course offered this summer a CCP course? It is actually not CCP. Our summer school courses are Lakota courses. So if you're looking at a CCP course and you would like to take one of those, then you would apply by the CCP deadline, which again, you can go on this page to get more information. And then you would go ahead and submit your letter of interest or an intent, sorry. And then you would go ahead and apply to the college for which you're looking at getting the credit or taking the course. Again, I think this is a question about Central. If the student is doing well and they're on track, do they have to attend in person for a final exam? Again, most students, almost all students attend at some point in the day to at least one in-person class and are scheduled for an AM or PM session, and that's how they start off. And then the decision is made on an individual basis with the student and the administration and the counselors there at Central. The next is curious about a gym credit for playing basketball. How would I go about getting that completed? Okay, so there's a couple of different ways, and I want to talk through all of the options, and you might be talking about one or the other, and that's fine. But the PE waiver is for students who are participating in approved athletics that are basically Lakota offered. They're part of the school. And so that list is on the PE waiver page. Again, if you use this link, it'll list all of the sports that are approved. But again, they're the Lakota sports. So if you play with an outside organization, that would not count toward the PE waiver. But what I do want to clarify is that the PE waiver does not award credit. The PE waiver waives the requirement for PE. Now, all students, in order to graduate in Ohio, have to take 2 PE classes, and even though each PE class is a semester in the state of Ohio, a semester PE is only worth a 0.25 credit. So 2 PEs, one is, each one being 0.25 is a total of a 0.5 credit. Now, just because the PE waiver has meant that the student does not have to take PE to graduate, they do still need to fulfill that 0.5 that's part of the total graduation credit requirements. So they can just use that 0.5 somewhere else and they don't have to use it toward PE. So that is something that they should let their counselor know that they're interested in, because otherwise the counselor will plan to schedule them for PE. I still recommend that every student take the junior high PE, because you know that at any point in high school, a student could get injured, they could get cut from the team, they could lose interest. So it's always nice to have at least half of the requirement fulfilled. And then you could always just have it as extra later in the end, and that's not going to hurt anybody. Then there's also credit flexibility. So credit flexibility is where you earn credit for something you do outside of the student day. And so this is where some students use credit flexibility to for their participation in sports outside of school, outside of Lakota. For that, they use what's called an individual plan, and they have to basically write out their course. Now, the state does give a template to use. So when you go to the credit flexibility page, you'll be able to link to actually, it's in my presentation as well. So let me put that in the chat. Give me 1 second. But what that does is the student outlines what they're going to be working on and lines it up with each of the state standards. Sorry, doing 2 things at once. And so the state has a template for that. So let me put this as an answer in the chat. So this link, and let me share my screen again because I switched tabs. So on this page, the Department of Education and Workforce for Ohio has outlined what students need to do if they're going to use credit flexibility for PE. So this Word document right here is a template. And when you open that, the student has to identify for each standard what they're going to do to meet that standard, and then what they're going to provide as a product to prove that they met that standard. And so what you will do is complete the credit flexibility application, which was on that other page that I showed you, that website. And that sends it to me as indicating that the student wants to do an individual plan. You then also complete this template and email it to your counselor. There are 2 deadlines. One is December 15th and one is April 15th. So December 15th, the student can start working on it in second semester. And then over the summer, April 15th, the student can start working on it over the summer and into first semester of the following year. But I need to assign by state requirements a teacher of record for the student. So I then need to find a PE teacher who will work with your student. And then the student completes all of the work and submits it to the PE teacher for grading. So that is an individual plan through credit flexibility. There are still other PE options, like students can take an online PE class through an outside vendor. But those, if the specific question was about basketball, so I assumed that you wanted to use the basketball work for the credit. So hopefully that gave you the details you needed. Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying. For the remote learning, some of the questions were actually specific to summer school. And summer school is remote. Students do not have to come in unless they are not staying on track with their work. So if they fall a certain number of assignments behind, and that's based on the type of course they're taking, they will be required to come in person. But otherwise, they're allowed to work remotely from home. They do have to finish by the last day of summer school. We can't extend past that date because we have to finalize grades so that they can go on transcripts, so that when counselors come back, they can update student schedules. So, but the remote learning for that is specifically remote. That goes for all original credit classes and for credit recovery and PE. And the exception to that is seniors who need to graduate have to come in person, and then math advancement students. So students looking to jump from regular math to an advanced math class from 6th to 7th or 7th to 8th. There are different options, and one is online, but the student, if they choose in person, has to come in person. Student took fitness and sports this year at Ridge in 8th grade. The team and the individual would count for the second one. So yes, so in our structure currently, and this will be updated starting next year, but right now, fitness and sports is the required first PE credit because it includes the state PE assessment that we have to give. And so if the student finished that, they can take PE2, and PE2 is technically any other PE that a student wants to take at Lakota. But for summer school, team and individual sports would be the one you would select, yes. Yes, if you took 8th grade PE this year, it will count for high school credit. That will count as your fitness and sports credit, as your PE1. Okay, that's all the questions in the Q&A so far, so I'll wait just a couple of minutes and see if anybody wants to pop some more in there. Okay, so for math advancement, if you cannot get your student to school on a given day, can you just jump back and forth between in-person and remote? So no, you cannot, because they're on a different kind of schedule. So if you are unsure about like consistent transportation for the duration of the summer, or you know that you're going to have some kind of vacation or time off during that timeline, I recommend just choosing the online option. There is also a tutoring option. So the online option and the in-person option have to be finished by the last day of summer school. If you cannot make that work, there is a tutoring option where you can find your own tutor and set up a schedule, and then you'll take a final exam at the end of the summer. That gives you all of June and most of July to go ahead and take that content and master that. So there are different options depending on your needs. So you can look at the summer school page for that. And let me jump back to a different tab. So if you're looking for information about math advancement, you can click on this math advancement overview, and it provides all of the options for each grade level and some more details about dates and things like that in registration. So that's where you would find all of your math advancement information there. We do not, the question is, do you require volunteer hours for the summer school government class? We do not. It is an online class. They complete it remotely. The other thing to note about summer school classes for the online ones is once they finish, they're done and they don't have to return. So if they finish early, they don't have to continue working remotely at all. So they can work at their own pace and they can work ahead. So a lot of students finish earlier than the 5 to 6 weeks. And so they do not need to continue once they've gotten their final grade. Okay, this is a good question, and I'm gonna try to talk through it, and then if I don't give you the correct answer, please email me after this. So the question is, can CP Algebra 2, or basically any course that's not listed as there for original credit, be taken for original credit? So we do have some original credit offerings in summer school, but not most of the core content, because we don't want to take away from the in-person learning that happens during the school year. So you cannot take CP Algebra 2 in the summer for original credit. We only offer it in the summer for credit recovery. When I say credit recovery, I mean a student has already taken the class, attempted it, failed it, did not earn the credit, and needs to take it again. So if you're looking to jump to another math course by the next school year, what I would recommend is looking at some online options through Credit Flexibility, so that you could take the course over the summer, earn the grade, get that on your transcript, and then be scheduled for the next consecutive math course. So I would look at Credit Flexibility in your situation, and then utilize that as an online course. And you would pick the online course. We have a list of approved online providers on the Credit Flexibility website, and you would pick one of them. You register and take it through them separately from us. You just have to make sure to complete the credit flexibility application before you do that, so that your counselor is aware that that's your plan. So that way your schedule can be updated accordingly. I recommend that if you're going to do something like that and take the course over the summer, that you finish by August 1 and get that grade sent into your counselor, because as soon as they come back in August, they're updating schedules. So I also recommend, if you're taking a course through another provider through Credit Flexibility over the summer, that you get the grade and you directly email it to your counselor. What we've had happen is some of our online vendors will mail the grades to our buildings in the summer when they're closed, and that mail doesn't always make it to the right destination then. So counselors don't get it in a timely fashion in order to make sure that schedules are updated for the first day of school. So I recommend that if you're going to take it through an online vendor over the summer, that you get that grade and you directly email it to your counselor so that they have it. And I recommend getting it to them before August 1, because like I said, as soon as they come back in August, they are immediately starting to update schedules. Other questions that you might have? So I will put a link in the chat to the Credit Flexibility website. The really easy thing is that Credit Flexibility is simply lakotaonline.com/credit flexibility. And I will show you that in just a second, but I'm going to put this link in the Q&A. So if I go to Credit Flexibility here, here's the handbook. So this outlines all of the options of Credit Flex and gives all of the details. It has the timelines and everything else. And here's the application. So this is a Google form. So you're going to complete this and make sure that your counselor is aware of your plan. But other than that, you're going to work through. You're going to go to this approved online vendor and select your course, and then it'll tell you which vendors are approved for that course. And that's what you'll use to complete the application. And then once that gets approved by your counselor, and you've confirmed it with them, then you can move forward with registering for the course, and getting started on it. If a student takes a course through credit flexibility, that it is not weighted. So we do not weight grades through credit flexibility because it's coming through from outside vendors. So that is something to consider if you're, interested in making sure that you get the weighted grade. I would take it through Lakota. So you can see her on this page is my name, and that link will take you to my email address. So I know a lot of times some of your questions are very specific to your student, their schedule, and their graduation needs. So if you want to talk about your specific student, I recommend you emailing me. That way I can get more into the nitty-gritty of what your situation is, and give you more specific answers, because I know sometimes a general answer isn't necessarily going to meet your specific student's needs. So feel free to email me after the fact. Why is a weighted grade important? Students who are looking to have a higher GPA, the weighted grade increases the opportunity for a higher GPA. Where students who take all unweighted grades, their GPA is out of a 4.0. And so students who take weighted grades can potentially earn above that 4.0. And so it really depends on what your student is working toward. And the other thing to that is considering what their skills are, right? Because if they're taking a weighted class and then they don't get the grade that they wanted, that could potentially have a negative impact on their overall GPA. So you want to consider that, especially like what course it is and where they're best at. So that those are all things to consider when determining what kind of and what level course to take. I've cleared the questions again, so I'm just giving you a couple minutes to think and see if you have anything else you want to pop in there. So Honors Algebra 2, an honors class is weighted at Lakota, but if you take it through credit flexibility and use Apex as the vendor outside of Lakota, it would not be weighted. So any course taken through credit flexibility is not weighted because it's from an outside vendor. Any other questions for this evening? Like I said, you are always welcome to email me if you have something more specific. Okay, the question is, how can students advance in math after junior high and get equal credit? Okay, so students can double up in a school year and take 2 maths at the same time. And that would give them the opportunity to take both weighted grades. So that might be something to consider. When they're in junior high, they have the opportunity to get to Algebra 1 by 8th grade. and then they would be in the honors track and those would be weighted grades for those honors level courses. So if you're looking for that, the first recommendation would be to see about getting into Algebra 1 in 8th grade and utilizing the Math Advancement course over the summer if you're in regular Math 7 and want to get to Algebra 1 in 8th grade. After that, if they want to double up on a math in order to get into the honors track, they can. So that way they could get the weighted grades moving forward. But once they get to 9th grade, any student can take Algebra 1. And then if they perform well, they could still look to take honors geometry the next year, because then they're not skipping a class. So the reason you would only take credit flexibility is because you're trying to skip a class for your schedule purposes. And so you would utilize credit flexibility over the summer to go like from Algebra 1 in freshman year to Algebra 2 in sophomore year, and you, instead of taking geometry. So you could take geometry over the summer and to get to that Algebra 2 course. So once you get to high school, credit flexibility in the summer is more about getting more courses squeezed in, not about the higher level courses. Because some students want to get to, they're in Algebra 1 9th grade, but they want to make sure they get to Calc by senior year. So then they would have to either double up at some point or utilize credit flexibility over the summer to try to get further along in math, not necessarily as far as the track level is concerned. Anything else you want to throw in the Q&A? Okay, at this point, seeing no more questions, I am going to go ahead and stop recording.